sure. And that's the biggest struggle. I mean, the spotlight's on them now, right? I mean, obviously the conference is slightly different. There's some big games. I mean, you have Ole Miss coming week 2, I think.
Yeah.
Which is going to be amazing. I can't wait to be there. What is your outlook, though, on this upcoming season? Let's talk about that. Like, what are your expectations? What do you think is going to happen?
I don't see why they shouldn't be talked about as conference favorites at this point. I'm laughing as I'm saying that because, again, it's just incredulous to think that I'm talking about Tulane. But in all sincerity, you know, they beat the top of the top last year, and those guys aren't even in the conference anymore. They don't have to deal with Houston in overtime with their third-string quarterback. They don't have to go to Cincinnati and snap a 32 home game winning streak, which, again, flew extremely under the radar at that. Thinking of the teams that have gone to Cincinnati in recent years, yeah, UCF got them in the regular season, but they beat them in the championship game when it mattered. And it was really just John Rice Plumlee turning into Taysom Hill, quite frankly, that really put that game into a hole. And then you think about the fact that Michael Pratt was playing hurt that whole time, too, with his heel. So those teams are all gone. The teams that they added, I think there's competition. I think that UTSA final season game will probably be looked at as maybe decide the conference championship. I think that Ole Miss game, though, that you mentioned is really one of those bulletin board material type things where, to me, that's where everything in 2021 went downhill. Like, I think it mentally and physically broke that team. That rain delay. Remember Willie telling us he felt like he played the pregame music too early because then they were all just sitting there for 2 hours, and they brought all of its players there, and there wasn't enough room for them, and naturally Ole Miss wouldn't let them inside their indoor practice facility, so they were sitting out in the tunnel getting rained on before this game after they spent 3 weeks in a renovated hotel with no amenities. And then, again, Nick Anderson breaks his fibula in the first quarter. He played through it, but Michael Pratt gets hurt. All these players go down, and it's still raining. It's miserable, and it just started this spiral that they were never able to climb out of. And you heard Michael Pratt after the championship game say he couldn't wait to get another shot at Lincoln Riley, and that's pretty aggressive to say as a player, like about another team's head coach. But to his credit, he showed exactly why he should be able to say that. I know that Oklahoma game, again, was one of those personal games for them. So I think if they're able to beat Ole Miss in week 2, there's no reason why they shouldn't run the table this year. Thinking about all the things that had to happen last season and everything they were fighting against perception-wise, only being the ones to believe in themselves. This year, I think their biggest battle will be actually having expectations and a spotlight put on them, and they won't be viewed as a team that no one saw coming.
Yeah. I love it, too. The 2021 year in particular was a year that I look at as such a, not a letdown, but just it was upsetting, right? Starting against Oklahoma so strong. I was so excited. I can remember I was in Orlando because I had evacuated for the storm just like the team did. I was somewhere in
Florida, too. I actually didn't go to that game, but.
Yeah. Well, and it was such a phenomenal game, and I remember sitting there, and that was actually my my silver lining of being in some random hotel room in Orlando. I was like, this is phenomenal. Tulane's going to be good. They took Oklahoma to the wire. Like, this is amazing. And then the wheels kind of came off. So then, like, knowing that, seeing how well they played, and then coming into this year and seeing that team come into this year and perform how they did was not – it was a surprise at first, but, like, then it just became the norm, which is really exciting. So seeing that same team and that same mindset, especially with Michael Pratt, come into this next season with him just kind of being a killer. Like he's a guy I have sung praises on for the last 2 years. I've told everybody. People ask me like, is he going to be a starting quarterback in the NFL? I don't know, but what I do know is that he's tough mentally, he's tough physically. He's a phenomenal guy. He makes all the right decisions. He makes all the right choices. Like, you're not going to beat him. He's not going to lose. Like, he's just that type of dude that's just going to will his team to victory. So, I don't know. Do you see him as I guess what I'm getting at, do you see him as a top quarterback in the entire NCAA next season? Because that's something I'm always thinking about for him.
I do, and I think it's another timing thing because if Tajay's here, then you rely more on the run game because you have a player like Tajay, but they're not going to have that this year. It's also the first year he's really been healthy, and the first year he's going to have consistency at offensive coordinator. Just to think about the fact that he was homeschooled until 9th grade. He didn't play football at all until high school. And quarterback is the most mentally demanding position. You have to know what every single player on the – I guess you don't have to, but he always knows where every single person on the offensive line is supposed to be, all of the assignments, to accumulate all of that and have 8 different offensive coordinators while doing so. You think about Baker Mayfield flailing in the NFL, but Michael Pratt just kind of stares adversity in the face and then just gets tougher. Like that Oklahoma game, he was beat to crap for lack of a better term. Same with the Ole Miss game. He fought through that. The only time that he really couldn't fight through it was when he got concussed, in the SMU game that year. But again, playing through the broken thing in his heel last season, having to make the comeback in the Cotton Bowl. 1 minute left, no timeouts. Alex Bauman is tight end one now because Tyreek James and Will Wallace are injured. Deuce Watts gets concussed and taken out of the game. And you can't hand the ball off at that point because of all the factors that I just mentioned. And he's able to drive them down there. He's able to use his legs, and he's been so much smarter about using his legs. I just think, and I actually just started rewatching the UCF championship game, and I forgot how great of throws that he made in that game too. Yeah. And you brought up like how smart of a player is. He's such a good decision maker. He takes such good care of the football. To have 27 touchdowns and like 5 interceptions.
That's amazing.
That's numbers that should get more attention than they do. He improved his completion percentage by almost 10% last season. He spread the ball out to like 12 different receivers. And he told us recently that he actually watches Drew Brees' game film, which was a little surprising to me, but I really respected that answer. And it explains a lot to me about his cerebral understanding of the game and his pocket awareness that has just really grown to me. And I just think that having chemistry with these guys, he said that he's really, loved having Slade Nagel around his entire tenure. He finally has that stability, and they're finally going to kind of lead with him. So I think really that this year could be a career-defining season and potentially change Michael Pratt's life.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that. Do you have any thoughts?
I mean, I agree with everything she said.
Yeah. No, I felt the same way. I'm just sitting here listening. I'm like, yes, uh-huh.
Yeah, no, he does not get talked enough about.
No, he doesn't.
It's funny because it's like, I mean, a knock on him, and it's not a knock, but people are going to say, oh, he played for Tulane, and he's not playing the competition. Right. But we mentioned it. He had the chance. He could have went play. Was it Florida? I think Florida was kind of looking around at him. He could have went play SEC ball, and he probably would have been just fine playing there. And he chose to stay here. So it's –
I mean, yes, like I don't ever look at the whole he played for Tulane thing as like
I'm not saying I do either.
No, I know. But you've had multiple quarterbacks come out of Tulane in the last 2 decades or 3 decades or whatever. Like there's been guys. I mean, J.P. Lossman, Patrick Ramsey.
Sam? Yeah.
Sean King. There's been guys that have come out of Tulane that have been good quarterbacks. And then you even had recently what's his name? RG4. That's what I'm going to call him because I can't think of his full name right now. Ryan
Griffin?
Ryan Griffin, yeah.
I'm going to be honest, I would not put Michael Pratt in this. I think that he's better than Ryan Griffin.
Oh, absolutely.
And Nick Montana was a quarterback when I went there, and as much as you think that the genetics would kick in there, it really didn't.
They did not.
And I just to say, like, I think you can have that issue at small schools, but I think it depends on what your offensive coordinator is giving the quarterback, and he's not running a one-read offense. He goes through his progressions. He has to make actual decisions out there. He reads the defense. He sets checks. He changes play calls. He looks guys off. He just does so much.
He does everything that you want.
Need in that transition to the NFL. Most importantly, taking care of the football. To be honest,
and he's enough of a dual threat that he fits every style of offense you want to play now.
Can we just acknowledge before we move on to something more fun? Well, this is fun. His flip across the goal line that he's done probably 10 or 15 times now. Like that's got to be a signature move, right? Like it's clearly like a finger roll.
Madden's got to get him in the little
suit. It's like
suit.
a gallop.
So that's his thing. Like we got to put the animation in the game. Like that's him. Nobody else is doing it.
I love that.
Give it to him.
He got hops. I will say that.
He does. He's a fun player to watch. I love it. I'm out of actual Tulane topics. Those are the ones I wanted to cover, but I want to make sure that I'm not missing anything before.
You had written down about joining another.
Oh
conference.
Yes, I did. Let's talk about that. Do you have thoughts? Because there's been whispers about Pac-12. There's been talks for years about other programs or conferences. Do you have thoughts on that? Do you want them to join a Power 5 conference? I mean, obviously the answer is probably yes, but like there's nuances to it. So let's talk through that.
Yeah, I think if you'd asked me this question last year, looking at what Tulane was the year prior, you'd be a little nervous, but they beat the Big 12 champs last year. I know that USC lost to Utah, but again, they're playing the Heisman winner out of a Pac-12 school. They've shown to me that they can hang with every single team. Even though they lost to Oklahoma, they still showed that they could hang with the big dogs there. So I think if you get an invite to a Power 5 conference, you go. There's a selfish part of me that would enjoy the Pac-12 because I'm from California, so it would give me a lot of reason to go home fairly often. But, yeah, I don't know what it really takes for a school to be looked at. And I know all of the conferences have different parameters. I think Tulane could also easily stay and make a run at the conference for a few years, but then it just becomes a question of, when do other schools get poached? It's such a messy situation that I just quite frankly think if you get an invite and it's clean, that you kind of just take it before things get even more in flux. But I don't think that they're necessarily overly focusing on that. They're really just focusing on kind of running the table on the conference, but I think that they would be a fit, academically speaking, and I think that they have the football now to match what you're looking for in a Power 5 conference. And if you could make that argument for Houston, Cincinnati, and UCF, I understand it's more than just last season, but to me, they stood above all of them last year. So,
absolutely. I mean, they beat every good team that was put in front of them last year. Like, they lost to some teams that they shouldn't have lost to, if you ask me.
Yeah, one coached by Michael Pratt's first offensive coordinator while he had a hurt shoulder and all these things went wrong. But, yeah, I mean, you're not going to win every single football team, but it's more like even in their UCF loss, they still showed that they had the mental toughness and the ability to hang in that game till the end. And 90% of teams are checking out at the end of that Cotton Bowl.
Yeah.
And that's the fight that I think you could say Tulane could hang with anyone for that reason alone.
That was one of my, and I mean, obviously I'm biased, but that was one of my favorite football games I've watched in my entire life. I mean, I watched the Saints win the Super Bowl. Like, that was such a phenomenal game. I can remember, I think I told him, we're in the middle of the fourth quarter or maybe the end of the third quarter or something. And I'm like, man, there's nothing we can do. We are not going to be able to stop them, even if we keep scoring.
It was like 6 to 8 minutes left. Yeah. And we were like, let's start making our plans for after.
I was like, it is
like
what it is.
This was fun, but,
I was like, we had a great showing. We proved we belonged, but I don't think we can stop them, and it is what it is. It's Caleb Williams is phenomenal. He's a Heisman winner for a reason. But then they made a few mistakes and allowed us the opportunity, and the rest is history. So
16 points in 4 minutes. I'm not a religious person. I started praying to people, and then that player fumbled at the one, and I just looked up, and I'm like, okay, I feel like I did something. I don't know what portal just opened, but in that moment, I knew Tulane was winning. That might be a hindsight is 2020. But I'm very much a destiny person, and that moment felt like destiny.
So we're convinced. We had somebody else watching the game with us. The second he left was when they fumbled on the one, and we're convinced he's the reason.
My mom, she went to the bathroom, and I scored my one and only goal in soccer. So she's told to leave when we need things to happen. So trust me, I get that.
Get out. Get out. That's funny. No, I think that's a whole nother conversation. We don't have to dive down that hole, but just like the way you approach games. Like, I wear the same shirt for certain games. I wear the same jersey for certain games.
I brought the AAC championship confetti in my pocket
there you
to
go.
the Cotton Bowl, so
because you knew.
Same shoes all year, but
there you go. Are you wearing them now?
I am.
Hell yeah. I love it. I actually like those.
Tulane shoes, yeah. They're I thought that was some university special, and it was just randomly cobalt green and blue shoes. Click.
Very cool.
My grandma's the same way. Like, with the Saints, for as long as I can remember, if she refuses, I've offered to take. She's the biggest Saints fan I know.
Yeah.
And I've offered to take her to games and all this, and she's like, I got to be on my spot. I cannot go. She's like, I would love to go to a game, but I can't leave my spot.
Is it like a spot on the couch?
It's just a spot on the couch.
And you yell at people when they come over, thinking you're gonna have a nice, fun outing, and it's like, get out of my spot.
People come over. They're not allowed over. She's like, if you aren't here, if you go to her house and they lose, you can kiss any other chance goodbye.
I was trying not to go down this rabbit hole, but the year that the Saints won the Super Bowl, I had a Marcus Colston jersey that I wore the whole year, and to this day, I still wear a Marcus Colston jersey for almost every Saints game, just because of it. He hasn't played for the team in like a decade.
I still wear my Deuce McAllister jersey. That's a youth large I bought when I was 11, and it is fraying at the seams at this point, but
it's only weird if it doesn't work.
It's just about to say that. And it's usually weird when it does work, but I just don't care.
No,
and that's my motto.
Then it's the reason it worked. Then it's the reason the team won. You're the reason. That's fine.